In the quiet corners of Okinawa, nestled between the deep blue sea and lush green hills, there lives a community of elders whose lives defy the clock. People well into their 90s and 100s who continue to garden, walk, laugh, and engage with the world with a vitality that seems to come from another time. And for decades, researchers have flocked to these villages to understand their secrets, not just to longevity, but to quality of life in those later years that so many fear will be marked by frailty or dependence. And again, one element rises to the top of every study, every interview, every personal story: food. Not food as mere fuel, but food as tradition, medicine, and joy. And while the world has tried to chase longevity through powders, supplements, and ever-changing superfood trends, these elders keep returning to the same handful of humble, time-tested ingredients that have quietly shaped their lives for generations. And when you sit with them, as scientists and journalists often have, and watch them prepare their meals, there is no urgency, no restriction, no obsessive counting of calories or grams of protein. Just a deep, intuitive relationship with nature and nourishment. And this connection starts with three core foods that nearly every centenarian in Japan consumes in some form almost daily. Foods so simple you might walk past them at your local store without realizing they hold the key to sharper minds, stronger bodies, and longer lives. And the first of these is something that's been revered in Japanese kitchens for centuries, not for its trendiness, but for its steady power: seaweed. Not the crispy snack form many Westerners think of, but whole, mineral-rich varieties like wakame, kombu, and hijiki, added to soups, stews, and salads in gentle handfuls, carrying with them a bounty of iodine, magnesium, calcium, and a type of soluble fiber that doesn't just nourish the gut, but actively helps regulate blood pressure, balance hormones, and remove toxins from the body. And what's remarkable is that these sea vegetables are consumed not as medicine, but as food, as ordinary and unremarkable to these elders as bread might be elsewhere. Yet it's in this ordinariness that their strength lies. For when you give your body something deeply nourishing on a daily basis, not as a fix, but as a foundation, your systems begin to align, inflammation lowers, energy balances, and resilience grows. And this is exactly what Okinawan elders demonstrate. Not just long life, but the absence of the chronic diseases that so often mark aging in other parts of the world, including cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and cognitive decline. And closely tied to this is the second food, one that brings warmth to almost every meal in a Japanese home: fermented soy in the form of miso, natto, and tofu. Though natto, the sticky, pungent soybean product known for its powerful health benefits, is the true secret weapon among them. For while its texture might challenge some palates, its impact on blood flow, gut flora, and immune response is nothing short of astonishing, with research showing that regular natto consumption is linked to lower levels of clotting in the blood, better cholesterol profiles, and even stronger bones due to its rare form of vitamin K2. And what's more, the probiotics in natto, developed through the fermentation process, contribute to a flourishing microbiome, which scientists are now calling the second brain of the body, due to its influence on mood, metabolism, and even memory. And these elders, without ever needing to consult the latest research article, have built this wisdom into their lives not through discipline, but through culture, through breakfast rituals that include warm bowls of miso soup, through dinners that pair tofu with fresh vegetables, and through an acceptance of foods that might be strong or strange at first taste, but reveal their gifts over time. And when we compare this to the average diet, in the West, where convenience, sugar, and heavily processed oils dominate, it's not surprising that the same age groups suffer from higher rates of degenerative illness, lower mobility, and increased dependence on pharmaceuticals to manage what these Japanese elders often avoid altogether through what they eat. And still, we have not yet reached the third food in this sacred trio, the one that often surprises people the most with its simplicity and accessibility: sweet potatoes, particularly the purple flesh variety common in Okinawa, though all types contribute to their health in different ways. And these are not just side dishes, but daily staples, often steamed, roasted, or included in stews, and their value lies in their low glycemic index. They're rich stores of antioxidants, especially anthocyanins in the purple ones, and their high fiber content, which supports everything from colon health to energy stability to clearer skin and fewer cravings. And unlike the refined starches common in many aging diets, these root vegetables offer slow, sustained nourishment that supports blood sugar balance, cellular repair, and a feeling of satiety that prevents overeating, which is particularly important because one of the most fascinating features of the Okinawan longevity diet is their principle of hara hachibiyu, eating until you're about 80% full, which pairs beautifully with the filling but not heavy nature of these foods, allowing elders to eat with satisfaction but without burdening their systems. And this practice alongside these specific foods creates a rhythm of eating that protects the body from overload and helps it focus instead on restoration, maintenance, and gentle renewal, all of which contribute to why these elders aren't just living long. They're living well, walking unaided into their 90s, gardening daily, maintaining rich social lives, and staying mentally sharp in a way that many people assume isn't possible after a certain age. And it's not magic, nor is it genetics alone, but a harmony between food, mindset, and consistency, one that's available to anyone willing to adopt even a few of these habits into their own lives. And in the next part, we'll continue this exploration of how these ingredients work not just in isolation, but in concert with lifestyle, ritual, and the deeply respectful relationship Japanese elders have with their meals and their bodies. And when we examine the lives of these Japanese elders beyond what's on their plates, what begins to emerge is a much deeper understanding of how these foods become part of a larger web of daily habits, beliefs, and rhythms that all contribute to the kind of graceful aging the world continues to study with admiration and awe. Because it's not just about eating seaweed, fermented soy, and sweet potatoes. It's about how they're eaten, when they're eaten, and the unspoken reverence that surrounds the act of nourishment. And this is something that sets Japanese longevity apart in a profound way, since meals are not rushed events or distraction from a busy schedule, but rather anchors of the day, moments of calm and presence, where food is appreciated not only for its flavor, but for its origin, its seasonality, and its purpose within the body. And elders often describe their meals not in terms of nutrition facts, but in terms of balance, harmony, and energy aligning themselves with principles like washiku, a traditional dietary approach that emphasizes variety, color, and local ingredients that work together to promote internal equilibrium. And this way of eating, when paired with the core ingredients we explored earlier, creates a dietary ecosystem that's more than the sum of its parts. Because it's not just that seaweed gives iodine, or natto provides probiotics, or sweet potatoes offer antioxidants. It's that they're consumed as part of a whole system that supports digestion, immunity, cognitive function, and even emotional well-being. And these ingredients appear again and again in rotating combinations, not as novelty items, but as expected staples integrated into every soup, side, or main dish without fanfare. And this repetition, this consistency, this respect for the role food plays in maintaining balance is what makes the difference. And when scientists investigate why Okinawa has one of the highest concentrations of centenarians per capita in the world, it becomes increasingly clear that what we're seeing is not just a fluke or a genetic anomaly, but a repeatable, understandable lifestyle model that anyone can begin to replicate, because the benefits of these foods are not exclusive to one region or one culture. What matters is how they're included, how they're supported by low-stress living, communal bonds, and an appreciation for the natural world that surrounds and sustains them. And one of the most striking things observed in studies of Japanese elders is their low incidence of cognitive decline compared to Western peers, with many elders maintaining sharp memory, clarity, and emotional regulation deep into their 90s and beyond. And much of this has been linked to both their low-inflammatory diets and their daily routines, where meals are shared, TV and devices are not present during eating, and each bite is often savored with gratitude, because these behaviors activate the parasympathetic nervous system, enhancing digestion and nutrient absorption in ways that fast, distracted eating simply cannot replicate. And this matters especially for older adults, whose digestive efficiency naturally declines with age, making food quality and food awareness even more crucial. And Japanese elders inherently understand this, perhaps not in biochemical terms, but through cultural wisdom passed down from generation to generation. And this respect for eating, this quiet mindfulness that surrounds each bowl of soup or plate of vegetables, actually allows the body to better assimilate the nutrient from the seaweed's minerals, the soy's protein, and the potato's fiber, ensuring that what's consumed is not wasted but fully utilized to maintain energy, repair tissue, and support neural pathways. And even more interestingly, elders who follow these traditions also tend to have lower rates of anxiety and depression, which has been partially attributed to the gut-brain connection, a biological pathway that is nourished in large part by fermented foods and high-fiber roots, both of which help build a more diverse and stable gut microbiome. And as modern research continues to confirm, this microbiome is directly involved in producing neurotransmitters like serotonin and GABA, both critical to mood and emotional regulation, which means that the very foods elders eat to maintain their physical health are also supporting their mental and emotional well-being in ways they may not even realize. And when taken together, this reveals a dietary approach that doesn't just aim to reduce disease, but actively builds vitality from the inside out, supporting joints, digestion, cognition, circulation, and immunity all at once without the need for synthetic supplements or extreme interventions. And perhaps even more telling is that these dietary practices do not fade with age. Instead, they grow stronger, with many elders becoming more involved in food preparation, gardening, or sourcing their ingredients locally as they grow older, which further connects them to purpose, movement, and the social bonds that form around food in small communities. And this is a crucial piece of the puzzle, because when food becomes not just sustenance, but also social glue, the act of eating takes on a meaning that supports longevity on every level, from the physical to the emotional to the spiritual. And what we see again and again in these aging populations is that isolation is rare, even among the oldest members, and food is a key reason why, because shared meals reinforce belonging, meaning, and rhythm, which all contribute to the reduction of stress. The very stress that contributes so significantly to chronic illness and premature aging in other societies. And by embracing foods that calm inflammation, promote gut health, and foster community, these elders are creating a loop of positive reinforcement that allows their bodies and minds to age not with decay, but with grace, adaptability, and a quiet strength that comes from years of simple but powerful choices. And as we move into the next section, we'll begin to break down exactly how these foods are prepared, how they're rotated across seasons, and how you can begin to introduce them into your own routine, no matter where you live or what age you are, because the principles that allow these elders to thrive are not bound by geography. They're bound by consistency, curiosity, and a willingness to embrace the power of nature's simplest gifts. And when we look closer at how these foods are actually integrated into the daily routine of elderly individuals in Japan, what emerges is not just a story of nutrition, but one of deeply ingrained patterns of living that reflect both discipline and delight in equal measure. Because these elders don't approach food as something to be managed, feared, or manipulated, but as something to be respected, welcomed, and honored in its natural form, which is perhaps why meals are not only consistent, but filled with variety within a gentle framework, starting with the breakfast table, where miso soup, often containing seaweed, tofu, and sometimes a small portion of fermented vegetables, is served piping hot as a way to warm the digestive system and kickstart the metabolism without jarring the body with sugar or excess caffeine. And this kind of start to the day, rooted in warmth and saltiness rather than sweetness and acidity, sets the tone for how energy will be used and preserved, and this is no accident, because elders have come to learn through experience that how you start your day determines how resilient you feel through the afternoon and into the evening. So meals are paced, thoughtful, and intentionally light, with an emphasis on ease of digestion and mental clarity, and mid-morning or lunchtime meals will often feature a bowl of steamed rice, a small piece of grilled fish, pickled vegetables, and again, fermented soy or seaweed in some form, whether mixed into salads, soups, or served as a savory side. And the portion sizes are striking. Not large, but not scant, just enough to satisfy and nourish without overwhelming. And this is supported by the Hara Hachibiyu concept, which is the practice of eating until you're 80% full, an idea rooted in the belief that slight restraint at the table leads to long-term vitality, giving the body space to process food efficiently without entering a post-meal sluggishness that so often leads to napping, inflammation, or metabolic imbalance. And while many cultures may tout the benefits of superfoods, it is this rhythmic, deliberate approach to eating that amplifies the effects of those foods, making them more potent, more useful to the body, and less likely to cause stress on digestion. And dinner, often the lightest meal of the day, may include seasonal vegetables, warm broth, and perhaps a sweet potato steamed to perfection. Often enjoyed slowly in quiet homes where television is turned down or off, and the act of eating becomes one of rest rather than entertainment. And this mindful end-of-day habit works in harmony with the body's circadian rhythms, allowing blood sugar levels to stabilize and digestion to wind down gently before sleep, which is another area where Japanese elders tend to excel, not necessarily in sleep quantity, but in sleep quality, with nighttime routines often built around herbal teas, body movement like stretching or walking, and sleep environments that are cool, quiet, and minimalist, which can be traced back to their diets and the foods they consume that naturally lower cortisol, reduce inflammation, and support serotonin pathways. And so the loop continues. As the food influences the sleep supports digestion, and the digestion sets the stage for mood, clarity, and physical strength the next day. And this cycle repeats with astonishing consistency for years, even decades, creating a foundation of health that is resilient to the very diseases and disorders that become common in later years elsewhere. And even their snacking habits are different, with very little reliance on ultra-processed foods. Instead, elders might reach for dried seaweed, roasted soybeans, or a cup of green tea accompanied by a small rice cracker, all of which offer antioxidants, fiber, or a touch of protein without spiking insulin or overburdening the liver. And even beverages are chosen carefully, with water, teas, and light broths being consumed in abundance, rather than sugary drinks or carbonated beverages. And these choices, repeated day in and day out, amount to more than just dietary preference. They become a physiological shield, a quiet but powerful form of resistance against modern ailments like type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and inflammatory arthritis, which are far less prevalent among the elders in regions like Okinawa. And it is no coincidence that these elders also demonstrate stronger mobility, clearer vision, and better joint health than their peers in more industrialized dietary cultures. And while many in the West might chase health through intermittent fasting, extreme diets, or expensive supplements, these Japanese seniors quietly continue their way of living, eating simply, moving often, and surrounding themselves with food that is colorful, alive, and seasonal. And in doing so, they avoid the pitfalls of fad nutrition and instead reap the cumulative rewards of thousands of days strung together with care and balance. And this cumulative effect also shows up in their healthcare needs, as elders who follow these traditional patterns require fewer medications, have fewer hospital visits, and recover faster from minor illnesses or injuries, in part because their immune systems remain regulated through the gut, which is continuously nourished by prebiotic fibers in sweet potatoes and miso, probiotics from fermented soy, and trace minerals from seaweed. And these nutrients don't just fight off illness. They support the production of collagen for skin health, improve calcium absorption for bone integrity, and reduce oxidative stress in the brain, all of which contribute to their ability to live independently, maintain mental sharpness, and engage in daily life well into their 90s and beyond. And perhaps the most touching part of this story is that many of these elders don't see their longevity as remarkable. They see it as normal, a natural byproduct of honoring the wisdom passed down to them, of cooking with their hands, eating with presence, and living in tune with the seasons and their bodies. And while modernization continues to reach every corner of the globe, these quiet practices remain remarkably resistant to change, safeguarded by communities that value their elders not just as dependents, but as wisdom keepers, and their dietary habits become part of their legacy, a gift they continue to pass forward to younger generations, even as convenience and processed foods knock louder at the door. And that gift is not lost to us, because in learning from their habits, we too can begin to reclaim our vitality, reverse the creeping effects of inflammation, and nourish ourselves with the same humble but powerful ingredients that have allowed so many to live not just long lives, but meaningful ones. And while the daily eating habits of these elders offer the physical blueprint for longevity, it's the emotional and cultural environment surrounding their meals that provides the soul of the story. Because eating in Japan, particularly among the elderly, is rarely a rushed or solitary event. It's often embedded in family, ritual, and respect, with food prepared not just for fuel, but as an expression of love, gratitude, and tradition. And when an elderly woman gently folds her hands to say, "Itadakamasu," before her first bite, she is not just following custom. She is honoring the entire process that brought the food to her table, from the farmer's field, to the cook's hand, to the communal table where conversations unfold softly between bites. And this relationship with food, rooted in mindfulness, gratitude, and moderation, becomes a kind of medicine all its own. And this medicine is not doled out in doses or measured in milligrams, but in moments. The quiet preparation of a miso broth on a rainy morning, the careful slicing of fresh daikon radish, the shared enjoyment of pickled plums after a walk to the market. And it is this holistic connection to food as nourishment, heritage, and celebration that supports not just the longevity of their physical body, but the health of their minds and the steadiness of their emotional lives. Because many Japanese elders don't just live longer, they remain vibrant, engaged, and mentally sharp, with far lower rates of dementia and cognitive decline. And part of this is owed to their diet, rich in omega-3 fatty acids, fermented compounds, trace minerals, and brain-protecting antioxidants. But part of it is owed to the very attitude they carry about aging itself, because aging in these communities is not something to dread or conceal. It's something to embrace with quiet dignity. And this perspective, so rare in much of the world, creates a sense of peace and purpose that may be just as crucial to longevity as any specific food group. And when you combine that mental outlook with the simple but powerful dietary staples of sweet potatoes, fermented soy, and seaweed, all prepared gently and consumed mindfully, you start to see how these small daily practices accumulate into a kind of graceful aging that is not defined by limitation, but by continuity. Because these elders don't suddenly stop gardening, walking, cooking, or socializing at 75 or 85. They keep going, not out of obligation, but out of desire, supported by bodies that are still supple, minds that are still sharp, and hearts that are still joyful. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all, not just what to eat, but how to live with rhythm, patience, and an open heart toward the passage of time. Because when we take even a few of these lessons and apply them to our own lives. Whether it's starting our day with a bowl of warm broth instead of sugary cereal, choosing seaweed over salty chips, or ending the evening with green tea and quiet reflection instead of processed snacks and screens, we begin to shift the entire trajectory of our health story, and we begin to write a new chapter that is not defined by decline, but by strength, clarity, and connectedness to the wisdom of those who've gone before us. And here at Healthful Living 60 Plus, we believe deeply that aging should be a journey of empowerment, not limitation. And the timeless food choices of Japan's oldest citizens show us that the keys to vitality are not hidden in exotic pills or expensive trends, but in humble, accessible practices that start in the kitchen and ripple into every aspect of life. And as you move forward, consider not just what's on your plate, but how you prepare it, who you share it with, and how you feel while eating it, because health is not just in the nutrients. It's in the intention, the tradition, and the joy. And we invite you to continue learning, growing, and reclaiming your energy by joining us here at Healthful Living 60 Plus, where we're dedicated to bringing you the tools, the stories, and the inspiration you need to live stronger, longer, and with more purpose than ever before. And if this message resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and return for more evidence-based, compassionate insights that truly support your journey to better health after 60. Because your best years are not behind you. They're right here, waiting to be nourished, one mindful meal at a time.